what I love so much about going to see a VHS film at Fantastic Fest is listening to all, including myself, the soft what the fuck that is whispered throughout, sometimes in unison with the characters that are on the screen. So I'm curious, what have been the most major contributors to the cinematic what the fuck makeup of each of you? Like those stepping stones that greatly contributed to the things that craving the left of center, so to speak.
Like cinematically, things that have made us think. Well, I was just talking to Justin about I love YouTube, and and there was a video. This isn't like a what the fuck thing, but for a documentary filmmaker, anytime there's something weird captured in reality, kind of by chance, it's a what the fuck moment, and it's the GoPro falling out of a plane and landing in a pig pen, and then it lands up and a pig comes up and starts like what do you call that? Snouting? No. What do they make? What sound does a pig make?
Snorting. Yeah. Sorry? Snorting.
Or snouting.
The perfection of that accident and it landing the way it did, that's a what the fuck moment, and it inspired me really in no way, but it's a weird moment.
Kate, I don't want to steal your answer, but I would say The Fly was the first what the fuck moment. Sorry, that I remember seeing. Tusk was obviously a what the fuck moment that if Justin was here, he might say that. So I'll speak for him. But yeah, those are the two that came to mind.
When my roommate, like my flatmate in college, it was like the late 2000, like 2009 and 10, and or 8, and there was these like YouTube, like internet was still, it was there, but like, it was not as regulated as it is today. And he was really exploratory and wanted to go and see a lot of like, gnarly stuff. And I think, he would find stuff on the, some dark web, and he would show me things which were
Let's hear about them.
I know, they were not. There's no way to really know if they were real or not. I'm guessing they were not. I hope. But yeah, I mean, and obviously, like in terms of cinema, like Possession by Andrew Zulawski, that I think is definitely like it gives you a jolt. And Society, the many films. Yeah.
I'm loving this question. Sitting in this interview room, I've fallen even more in love with all the filmmakers I get to be combined with. There's really good people. For me, Reddit constantly makes me go, what the fuck? I really like to go on No Sleep and some of these like creepy pasta what the fucks. Also, being an owner of a human body makes me go, what the fuck? I love my children, but pregnancy, childbirth, and the 4th trimester was a huge what the fuck for me when it comes to body horror.
True. I want to add to your Reddit, there is an actual subreddit, what the fuck, right? So that would be my first in, but I would say this goes back to Sundance VHS, the first one, and I hadn't seen any segments. We're all out there just like they are seeing, last night or 2 nights ago for the first time. And I see David Bruckner's segment and a dick gets pulled off and thrown, and I go, what the fuck? This movie's amazing. And it's right from the beginning.
I guess if I had to go back to the first time it like registered as a what the fuck as a kid, it was the VHS cover for Meet the Feebles, the Peter Jackson movie. Because I love the Muppets and still do, and love Jim Henson, and it was off limits. It was forbidden, and there's a sticker on the cover, and I don't know if it was like built into the design or if just my local video store put that on there, but it was like restricted. No one under the age of 18 can touch this thing, let alone rent it. And so that was a big what the fuck. Like, what is this tape that looks friendly towards children but is like not for children? And so
my first pitch was a Muppet segment. They said no. Really? Just time-wise, takes too much time.
You touched on this a little bit last night. We were talking about working within the found footage landscape, but I'm curious about, because a lot of the moments that I really loved in watching in addition to the what the fuck moments was the nuanced moments, having like with yours, like messing up in the beginning and having to start over and things like that, or a shaky leg as they're about to go into something, all kinds of moments like that capture the psychology of the characters. And so I'm just curious about that process of finding the humanity within the moments that are extreme, but also within the found footage landscape.
Mine, because I'm interviewing real people and they're kind of just doing their thing. There's not a lot to do there, and the tape was sent to me, so that was kind of like out of my control. Although I will say, originally, the alien in the tape had genitals, and Justin had to remove the genitals for Shudder. So there's now like just a eunuch kind of look, because Nick Lazo at Shudder said no frontal nudity, even aliens. So
that's insane.
Yeah.
In terms of finding the humanity and the subtleties, I didn't find it. The actors found it, and we were very fortunate to find really grounded, natural actors who gave really authentic performances. One thing comes to mind. Our main actress Libby, her dog Bruce, shout out, was the actual dog. There was going to be an actor dog, but we thought, hey, why not? And her audition was amazing. She used her own dog, and we asked if Bruce was available to be in the movie. And Bruce, through a lot of negotiation, and his agent was being a pain in the ass, he agreed to be in the movie. So that was a little subtle, just the way she was able to interact with the dog and be familiar with it. I think it helped give it a more authentic feel. So yeah.
I was just gonna say, I don't know how much this sort of leads into your question, but I was telling them that I needed to, like, it's found footage, like the realism is important to sell these movies, and so I when I had my cast, I sort of tricked them and said we're gonna have a rehearsal, and I asked if we could have a rehearsal, and I brought everyone in and made them think we're gonna have a rehearsal, and instead I just let them loose, and I told them, you guys have been friends since high school, and I need you to know each other, so I just want you guys to hang out. Let's just go hang out. And I felt like what I got out of that was so much more. When they were in the plane, they were doing these little things, little nuanced things that I didn't tell them to do, that came from that they, built this world. And I think it just enhanced the found footage aspect of it.
I cast one of our set painters. I lost an actor, and I walked downstairs, and Boomer was painting the set in that what he was wearing in the short, the blonde kid. And I walked up to him and said, "Hey kid, you want to be in the movies?" Which, like, I mean, well, women had a chance. It was fine. But in that moment, I think I just wanted that sense of awkwardness in front of the camera. This is the 90s. My segment was in the 90s, and people weren't as comfortable in front of cameras then. And so I needed people who weren't actors. I mean, Alana brought a ton of that, organic energy, and that's her talent, and that's her skill. But my interviewees were our set painter and Josh, our producer, because I wanted people who maybe were like trying to do it right for the camera, and I liked that vibe a lot.
Yeah, I think it all goes back to just like the characters, and even in ours, our actors, they really like, they would watch videos about paparazzi guys and just kind of like one of our actors who the main guy, Arnab, he actually went and like spoke to some paparazzi guys just to get into that headspace and that vibe, and he's a very like sober and kind of guy normally when you meet him, but like when he would get into like just that character, he would just go all out, and all the camera movements, everything would then dictate by his paparazzi kind of like energy. So everything, and even obviously Namrata being our main lead, Tara, she's also an actor in in reality. So she was able to bring some of that energy. Obviously, she had to tread the fine line between the character and her being this AI machine. But like, yeah, I mean, and in terms of just fun things, like my flatmate, the guy I was talking to you about, I cast him as the director. We saw the first OG VHS together. I wanted somebody who could be a little, who looked like young but could be a little arrogant. I told him you should be one of our other friends from college. I'm like, small parts. I'm there in a small thing, like in the crowd, running away because we have so many like background actors. So it was a lot of fun, and me trying to put some of our crew in the background was also me just getting, that was our way of getting like some real reactions. So our AD is running back, she grabs him and throws him, so it's fun. Yeah.
I know we're going to run out of time, so I'll cut you loose on asking about how scientific you get with your horror. I know that essentially, even going back to talking about the nuance moments, like you're having to fast track characterization with that by causing the audience to feel and invite themselves, immerse themselves into these situations. But I'm just curious about like figuring out that terror meter a little bit and being like, okay, this is is it intuitive? Like, is it organic or is it very calculated for each of you?
I think it was more like I had an easier time with it because it was using the documentary form, and I could use archive, and so the person in the tape is not real, is a friend of mine named Jerry Eng, and I just asked him to send all of like family photos and real archival items. And you can, when you have two interview subjects that you're giving kind of a research packet to and asking them, this is what you have to express about these people, it's a lot easier, I think, than what these guys had to do with actually building character. And shorts always feel like they have to have like a punchline or something. Like there's always this feeling like it has to lead to a punchline or like a twist or a reveal. So I try to do that, and just that everything leading up to the tape hopefully feels 100% authentic. Then you see the tape and it's like, that cannot be real. And then that blurred line is the thing that's fun to play with.
Yeah, we were very deliberate not to play for horror or play for comedy, but just try to make it as real as possible and hope that it sort of took care of itself. And this, I know this gets back to your previous question a little bit, but an example of that is we told one of the actors to watch this episode of Impractical Jokers. I don't know if you guys have seen that show, but there's a scene where Sal gets locked in a hotel room with a lion, or a tiger rather, and he is like, you see the fear in him, and he's like breathless, So the moment that one of our characters is being attacked by another character, by Bo, there is this sense that you expect her to scream or emote in some big way, but we told her to watch that scene, and there's something really authentic about, like, when you're that scared and when your life is on the line, you don't have the energy to produce that type of like classic like film scream. So it was like you're just kind of breathless. So things like that, we tried to just find the realism as much as we could in this obviously absurd story, but we tried to make it grounded as possible.
To make it feel grounded, in the moment, organic, but at the same time, and sort of a jumping off from the character and it organically coming from there. But one thing Josh and Evan and I would really discuss was that this character, when she goes rogue, she doesn't know how it feels for other humans. So she's as if she's doing all these things to them. She's surgically removing somebody's heart or like doing this eye gouging. She doesn't know. I mean, she can probably sense that they're feeling some pain, but she's like this machine who's just going and ripping people apart like a surgeon, And obviously the horror moments will basically, and her obviously doing that face ripping in the end, is just because she wants the face. Obviously the guy is screaming, but she doesn't care at that moment, and she doesn't probably know how it feels. She's just thinking or this machine is thinking in a very different way. So we were always sort of leaning into that, and obviously the horror will come from that naturally. So that was our sort of like way of getting those moments.
I think in Stowaway, I really leaned into what's scarier is the stuff you can't see. That for that particular project, it really helped to only be able to glimpse the alien a little bit and to glimpse her build a little bit and all of the ways that she's been destroyed by these nanobots within the format of this project. That was the most successful for me. That and sound design is always so important. And there were things that when I was showing early assemblies to people I trust, they'd be like, this shot doesn't work, or this is too long. And I'd be like, no, you gotta give me a second. Like, let me get that like specialized sound of the nanobots going through space that will let people know that something horrible is happening without having to shoot it. And I like it both ways. Like, I love straight up gore. I love face rip off. I love sliced face. I love, you know, deep throating freaking stuff. And oh, god damn it!
Hey, did you just lose another bet?
You gotta cut that out too. But for me, what was successful in this short was the stuff you couldn't see.
Yeah.
Fuck. Immediately going on YouTube.
I mean, I have the realism is one thing that I struggled with, knowing that I had to do something in daylight. I had to do a horror in daylight. I didn't get to hide in the shadows or darkness much, so everything is exposed. It's actually, like, even in the script we talked about, should we make this a night jump just so that you have that, you know, when they hit the ground, that advantage? And ultimately it didn't feel right, so I had to figure out, how do we do this? How do I make this feel real without having to use some of the, you know, techniques that we would normally lean on in horror. One of those was spending extra time designing, like doing the model for the alien, knowing that I was going to be judged by horror fans, myself as well. I want that to look practical, right? Like we don't want to see something CGI, so that's always my goal. But yeah, putting extra time into it, like months, like helped. And I would also add one more thing, like in the truck, there's this scene where, you know, it gets lifted off the ground and you see the soda bottles and things lift off the ground. Budget, time, I wanted everything to lift off. So realism to me is not fully achieved in that scene. When he looks over, like there's stuff on the dash that's not floating up. It doesn't really make sense. But I knew. Exactly. I knew that, like, that's me being extra critical, and at the end of the day, most people were gonna make up a reason for why it was only those. But now I just told them that
I would say for me, making movies, genre movies in particular, feel like they're bookended by intuitive decisions, and in the middle, everything is very calculated. And what I mean is, when you're writing, I just try to let people talk in my head and just sit there in a closed, you know, dark room, listen to music, whatever it is, but just feel the movie more than think it. But then it comes a point where you have to actually break it all down, and you have to figure out how you're going to shoot this, how are you going to organize and orchestrate the scares, which can be very technical, and the stunts and action, guns, any of that stuff becomes complicated, and you can't just like guess your way through that. You've got to, like, you know, plan it. But then you get on set and you throw all that stuff out the window, and the cast has great ideas and the crew has great ideas, and you revert back to intuition and you say, cool, all that calculation brought us to this point, and now camera's here and the lights are here and we can shoot that, but let's do it a little bit this way or a little bit that way. So you kind of just, it's a combination of both, I think, where to get you to the final result that you're looking for.